Here's the economic update for July 20th, 2026. For inflation, on July 15th, we had our Producers Price Index at 5.5%. This is down month over month, but up year over year. We have our Producer Price Index Core. This is minus food and energy. This is at 5.1%. This is up month to month and year over year. On July 14th, we had our Consumer Price Index. This is at 3.5%. It's down month over month. It's up year over year. Consumer Price Index Core minus food and energy, that's at 2.6%. Again, down month over month. On June 25th, we have our personal consumption expenditures. This is at 4.1% rising. And our personal consumption expenditures Core minus food and energy, and that was at 3.4% rising. Now, you'll generally see the Producer Price Index move first because this is what the people that make your products or deliver your services pay first. Then you see that for the Consumer Price Index, or basically the prices you see at the shelves, and then what you actually spent. The Fed has a mandate. Basically, you want stable prices, so you want this to stay, generally the PCE is what they prefer, to be around 2%. Number two, you want to have maximum employment. So how are we doing with jobs? So on July 1st, our ADP number came in at 98,000 jobs added in the US. Basically, this came from finance, education, health services, trade, transportation, utilities. On July 2nd, we had the government numbers from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics at plus 57,000 jobs in June, and we got revisions down for May and April. We're now looking at 129,000 jobs in May and 148,000 jobs in April. These were revised down about 74,000 jobs. I look here, the labor force participation rate has been dropping over time. We're at 61.5%. When we look at our unemployment rate, now month over month, this has gone down or stayed steady. However, year over year, this has increased. We're at 4.2% unemployment. For the people that are considered unemployed, it means that they don't have a job, they're looking for a job, they're able to work, and they searched for a job in the last 4 weeks. So that's 7.1 million people. However, 6 million people did not look for work in the last 4 weeks, and 4.7 million people want full-time but are only part-time. So if you think about all the people that want jobs but don't have jobs, you're at 7.7%. If you include the people that want full-time jobs but can't find them, they're only working part-time because that's all they could find at the moment, you're looking at closer to like 10.5% of the population. Also note that the greater than 27-week unemployment number is at 27.3%. So this is above 1 in 4 people that are unemployed have been unemployed for more than 6 months. And this is why I talk about having a 6-month emergency fund. On June 30th, we had our JOLTS report. There's 7.6 million open jobs. And if you think about that, and you have 7.1 million people that are technically unemployed looking for jobs, that number doesn't seem that bad. But when you start looking at all of those added up, you're closer to like 18 million people that want a job, full-time job that is, and there's 7.6 million available. There were 5.2 million people hired and 5.1 million separations. Generally, what I notice is people won't leave a job, especially at the moment, unless they have a job. So these two are aligned pretty closely. But even with that 5.2 million people that were hired, there's 7.6 million jobs open and available. So it seems like there's about 2.5 million month over month, each month, jobs that are just left unfilled. And if you think about it, that's about 33% or about a third. And if you've heard of a lot of ghost jobs, this is basically where it's coming from. There are a lot of jobs that basically people apply for, they never hear back from, or there's no actual job that they're hiring for. So the Fed, they basically determine monetary policy. The last time they met was on June 17th. The FOMC interest rates were held at 3.5 to 3.75%. Basically, they said we want to maintain ample reserves. This basically means we're buying 0 to 3-year treasury bills. They said inflation remained elevated, capital investment and productivity were strong. However, unemployment is steady. It's not declining, but at least it's not going up. Economic activity has expanded, but there's still a lot of uncertainty with the Middle East conflict and energy prices. Now, do realize this is when we actually had a ceasefire. We are no longer in a ceasefire. It's very much an active conflict between the US and Iran. The Fed also puts out dot plots every 3 months, so this one had it. Effectively, this put interest rates either staying the same or actually increasing for 17 out of the 18 members that put a dot plot basically together. The next FOMC meeting is on July 28th and 29th. So on the 29th, you'll find out whether or not they hold interest rates or drop them or raise them. I think they're going to hold for a period of time. There's too much uncertainty to actually make a change at this moment, in my opinion. For a gross domestic product or GDP, the last update that we had for first quarter was on June 25th. This is a positive 2.1%. It's good. It's positive. July 17th, we have GDP Now. Second quarter estimates for 2026 are coming in at 1.7%. So I've been noticing this has been dropping over the last couple of reports. That could be due to some of the uncertainty with the Middle East conflict, as well as the increased energy prices. For real estate, on July 9th, we had our existing home sales at 4.09 million sales. This is up 2.8% year over year, and 1.56 million for sale. This is up 1.3% year over year. We're now sitting at 4.6 months of supply, so it's still in many cases a seller's market, not yet a buyer's market. Again, all real estate is local. We're looking at a median home price of $440,600, and this is up 1.8% year over year. So why am I putting green and red here? Well, it depends if you're a buyer or a seller, so it's good for some and not so great for others. So being that housing is going up slower than inflation and hopefully slower than wages, that then means that homes then become more affordable to more people. So that's a good thing for affordability. Not so great if you own real estate and your home is not appreciating, or the buildings that you own are not appreciating as fast as they were. And you can see here, this is more of a regional thing, so you can get a little bit more into detail. On July 16th, our pending home sales were down 5.4% month over month, and it's in all 4 regions, and we're down 0.3% year over year. However, there were gains in the Northeast and Midwest. There's still losses in the South and the West. And if you want to take a look at more of the regional numbers, here they are. How's the consumer doing? On July 17th, there's the index of consumer sentiment. We're up 9.9% month over month, down 11.8% year over year. Current economic conditions, we're up 15.1% month over month. We're down 19.3% year over year. Index of consumer expectations, up 6.5% month over month, down 6.4% year over year. If we look at business, July 17th, Business Leaders Survey, basically this is the first month service sector grew in over 2 years. The business climate is improving, however, it's worse than it normally would be. July 16th, retail sales, we're looking at plus 0.2%, plus or minus an error of 0.4%. So this could be positive or negative in terms of month over month. That doesn't really tell me much. However, we're plus 6.7%, plus or minus 0.5% year over year. So that's a positive number. So it's growing, and it actually looks like it's growing faster than inflation. So that's good. On July 1st, we have our ISM. Overall economy and manufacturing is growing just at a slower rate. Employment and new export orders were contracting at that point in time. July 6th, the ISM services have been growing, but growing slower. However, employment is now growing for the first month. It's been a couple of years at this point, I believe. So that's good news for people looking for employment in the service sector. A couple of concerns I have at the moment. There's something called a yen carry trade. What is this? Well, Japanese yen is borrowed at very low interest rates, and then typically they'll exchange it for dollars and then buy things such as, stocks and bonds in the US, and they'll make money on, the stock market going up. They'll also make money because there's a differential between the US dollar and the yen. As long as the yen is easy to borrow and the stock market goes up. What happens is if the exchange rate changes or the Bank of Japan increases their interest rate or the US stock market starts to go down, what you see are billions of dollars being pulled out of the US stock market by the Japanese yen holders, effectively, or people that will owe those bonds back. So that's a concern. The other one is that the Iran-US conflict has escalated. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but that will have impacts on oil prices. And speaking of that, the US has a strategic petroleum reserve, and we're now at 316 million barrels. This is the lowest we've had since about 1983. Because we're releasing millions of barrels a week, what we're able to do is reduce the impact from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And that allows us to release oil and keep prices fairly low, even if it's at $4 a gallon. Now, as this starts to run out, we're not going to be able to keep the prices as low as they are if it continues. So we need to start producing oil in different regions of the world or open up the Strait of Hormuz. There's also a concern now in the Red Sea where effectively they may blockade another oil pipeline or oil routes to the ocean. Basically, it's the Houthis that are located in Yemen that are proxies for Iran. So we'll see what happens there. So with all this information, what am I doing with my money? Well, first and foremost, I make sure I'm debt-free. There's no point in investing when I have a 29% credit card debt or something. So make sure high interest debt is taken care of. Then I'm making sure I have an emergency fund. Why do I have an emergency fund? Well, there's a lot of people that have been unemployed for 6 months or more, and then unemployment runs out. So I want to have that money, and I want to have that emergency fund. And FDIC, this is mostly high yield savings, high yield CDs. I'm getting around 4% on those at the moment. Number two, any money I need in the next 5 years. So if I'm planning to buy a car or fix a roof or a house or a wedding, whatever those big ticket items would be, that money doesn't belong in the stock market. That's where I'm going to use FDIC, high yield CDs, high yield savings, that sort of thing, because I don't have the amount of time to recoup if something goes wrong. Money I don't need for at least 5 years. And why more than 5 years? Because investments can lose value and they can drop off for a period of time, and it may take many years before they come back. So any money I invest, I want to give it enough time so that it can actually grow. So what I'm using is dollar cost averaging. So every time I get paid, I invest a portion of my income, and most of that goes to the S&P 500, about 70-80%. About 10 to 20% goes into total international funds, and about 0 to 10% to bonds. Do realize that bond value is inversely proportional to the interest rate. So if the interest rate goes up, bond value goes down. If the interest rate goes down, bond value goes up. I do also hold a couple $100,000 in, gold, silver bars, aluminum. I make body armor out of copper, I have steel, things like that. So a lot of metals. I also reinvest a lot, and that would be into my farm or my farm stands, businesses, YouTube, Amazon, and any ideas that I have that seem to be asymmetric, where I put a little bit of risk in and I get a lot of return out. I'll take those bets over and over again because, maybe if I do 10 of them, maybe 5 of them work out, but those 5 will more than pay for the 10 and give some amount of profit. So I hope you found this useful. Please subscribe. I cover a lot of financial topics, not just only updates, such as how to make more money, how to save, how to invest, how to limit your risk, be an entrepreneur, and that sort of thing. Well, thank you for watching. Please subscribe and have a great day.